So the first thing that we're gonna do is to actually install GraphqL-faker. GraphqL-faker actually helps you mock or extend your GraphQL API with fake data, and there's no coding required, as it explained on the repository. Um, the README file actually goes over some of the scenarios that you can cover with the tool, and this module actually uses Faker.js, which is also helpful if you need to mock something on the client side. So this provides different fake data points, such as a first name, a username, an address, an email address, or phrases. And the list is pretty actually complete. So you have address, commerce, company, database, date, finance, and other stuff, and images, and a lot of stuff. So it's pretty interesting for us to use both on client side, sometimes on even on GraphQL with things like Apollo, or on our backend side. So the first step is to actually install it. So if we go back to the documentation, we will see that this is something to install globally. So I already have it, but otherwise I would do like this. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to mock an API that it doesn't exist. So it would be more like prototyping instead of mocking, but it would be helpful for me if I had to design or draft off an API and then to discuss with the team or to discuss with other teams or the product owner, or just for me to have an idea of the design, and then I can even start playing with the UI integrating. So it helps me for various purposes. So the first step is actually to open. So we'll do GraphQL on the terminal on the bottom. We'll do GraphQL fake /open. And this actually creates this editor. And you can see on the bottom it has created this 9002 editor and GraphQL. So in 9002 we have the place where we will be working to create our mocked API, and you can see here that it already provides some hints and examples. And then on the GraphQL sandbox, GraphQL, then we can actually execute our queries to test it out. So this is basically the very first step. Now we are ready to start. So without doing anything, you already got an example of how to do this. And you can see the way that it works is just like you would do on a GraphQL server. You define your schema definition, and the only thing that it changes is we have a new directive, which is, well, we have two fake and examples that allows you to inject the responses. This is like if we were in the GraphQL server, we could actually go to the resolver and hard code a response in there. So this actually helps you provide the same output. So right away you see you have three queries: employee, company, and all companies. And employee and company actually have fake data. If I go to the sandbox, then I can actually say I want to get all companies, and then I already start getting autocomplete. So from here, I can say I want the name and I want the industry, and maybe that's all I want. If I hit play, I already get the data. You can see, if you noticed before, the industry, for example, was coming from a list of examples, while the name was actually from a faker type. So out of the box, we get this to start working with. And you can see I don't have a server. I didn't set up a Apollo server or any other variances. And I already have a working API that now if I start querying this from my UI, I can already start working with this. The good thing is that when you hit save, then if I made any changes, it would actually be saved to a local file. So you can even share that file. So right now we're going to actually start doing our own example. So let's say that we have the blog platform. And so we're going to start creating. Let's say that we have a type query. And we're going to say posts returns an array of post. Okay, and then we're going to define the type post. And let's define the schema first. So let's say I have an ID and I have a title. Let's make this a string, and this is going to be not null. And then we're going to have the body, will be also string. Then we're having excerpt, just to show on the main page, just a small thing before showing the whole article. And then let's say that I want to also have an author. This is going to be an author. And then let's create that type author. And this is going to actually implement user. Okay. And so let's make that interface. Okay. I'm going to say we have an ID and we have maybe a first name. It's going to be a string, and then a last name. It's going to be also a string. And so this guy, obviously we need to implement all these things, but it will also have, what else? So the author, let's put a screen name, and we can go into more, into multiple things, but let's keep it simple. All right. So now I have this. I'm going to actually save. As you can see on the bottom, it actually saved my schema definition to a local file now, which later I could even commit or share with my team. And now if I go to the sandbox and I do query all posts, now I already have my autocomplete. So I have an ID, a title, let's get everything, body, excerpt, and I'm gonna actually get right after that, I'm gonna get the author, I'm gonna get the first name, last name, and the screen name. Alright, so now if I hit start or play, I'm getting the same basic mocking that I can get from a GraphQL server if I put mockstrue on the configuration, for example, in Apollo server. Instead of hello world, we just get the type as a string right now in this example. Let's add something else just to have a different type in there. So on the post, let's do they sold. This is gonna return it. So let's save it, and then okay. So now, I need to request for that, otherwise it will never come. So let's put it over here. They sold. Okay, you see now I get the integer being mocked. So this is fine, and this is good, and it's good that we didn't have to set up a whole server just to start playing with this. But the idea of this is that I want to start maybe integrating with the UI or have a more deeper conversation or an interesting conversation with the product owner or a QA or somebody else working with me, another developer. And I would like to provide a better example for this so we can have a better conversation. So what I can do is, going back to our schema definition, I can actually start using the fake or the examples directive in order to provide more specific and more realistic examples. So let's start with the title. So we're going to do fake, and then here we're going to give it a type. And if I do autocomplete, then with control space, I start getting the different types. And these match what you can see on the Faker documentation. So I'm going to say for the title, I'm going to use lorem. And then if I pass some options, then I will use, I think this is sentence. Let's see. This is lorem size. There you go. And then here is sentence. Okay, perfect. Let's save this and see what has changed. So now, what we're interested in is in the title. You see now in the title I get a sentence. Granted, this is the boilerplate style that we sometimes use on the UI. But this is actually a little bit better than I had before. Because then I can start playing. Let's say that I'm integrating with the UI. If I provide single words for title, sometimes I could have some issues with, the width of that title, or how it pushes the layout in one way or another, or if we're doing responsive design, this could be something relevant. Think about when you're using first names and last names. Sometimes you get some really long last names, and that could actually be a problem on some of the presentations that you're doing, or the layout that you're putting together. So let's keep going, and I'm gonna use for body. I'm gonna use the same thing, but I'm actually gonna choose paragraphs, and then for excerpt the same thing, but only one paragraph. And then for author, I don't need to provide anything, but for this one, well, I could actually leave it as it is. Right now, it's gonna by default return a number, but there are some more specific things. So let's see, type would be number, and then options. Let's see if I remember this. Maybe I don't remember this, but there's a minimum and maximum that you can use. Let's keep this for a minute. Let's go for the author. So we're gonna fake it, and we're gonna say type is first name, and we're gonna say fake to this one as well, and the type will be last name. And then for a screen name, let's just leave it as it is. So I save, play. Now I'm starting to get something more realistic, where I have the ID, which is unique, the author that has a real name, screen name still providing whatever. We can figure out if there's something more interesting. They sold, it's still a number, so we didn't put any specifics to this. On the title, we have a sentence. The body has multiple paragraphs. You can see here the breaking. And then the excerpt has a single paragraph. And you can see I get all this information. If we go back, we could actually see if there is something more interesting for this guy. So again, you can navigate this through the autocomplete. So just going through all these things. Let's see if we find anything that it's appealing to us. Well, I didn't find anything that called it out. So maybe what we can do is use examples. Okay, examples. There you go. And then I don't remember now. I think this is like this. So we'll do, I don't know, screen names. So I don't know, puppy. And then we'll do another one, which is, I don't know, Hacker 21. And then save it, and then let's hit. And we can see the screen name for this one is puppy, for this one is Hacker 21. And I mean, you can come up with your own.